Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Viewpoint on DBS Television. It is a pleasure to be here again to discuss issues concerning back to school. And to talk about this with us in the studio, we are having Kimbang Vitalis. He is not new. He has always been accompanying us in one way or the other to discuss certain topics. He is a civil society activist. Good evening to you, Kimbang Vitalis, and you're welcome.
Good evening, Vanessa. Good evening, televiewers. It is my pleasure to be here today to talk about schools in the Northwest and the Southwest region.
Manga Venashus, it is a pleasure having you again.
Vanessa, good evening, and good evening to our viewers. It's equally my pleasure to be there this evening to talk issues really concerning Cameroonians, concerning our society. And Vanessa, permit me say a good evening to two of our I call them regular viewers. They have always been there. I'm talking of Chifu Ebenezer. He is in Nigeria. Has been watching us on a daily basis. I'm talking of Milam Samson Jumbam. He's in Denmark. He has been watching us practically every day. Good evening to these two gentlemen. They follow Viewpoint, from the beginning to the end, practically every day.
Practically, and we thank the Most High for always giving us that strength to be there to discuss certain topics. Let us enter into the subject matter by taking the first part of the show. Once more, you are welcome back, tele-viewers. Back to school in the Northwest and the Southwest regions. Are schools prepared? Vitalis, do you think schools are prepared?
Yes, schools are prepared.
Manga Venashus?
I don't think so, Vanessa.
You don't think so? And can anything be done for an effective resumption? Vitalis?
Yes.
Manga Venashus?
Yes, Vanessa, something.
Something can be done. Let us take the second part of the show. Back to school in the Northwest and the Southwest region, we are trying to find out if schools are prepared to receive back the students. Vitalis, you think that these schools are prepared with all the hurdles going on in these two regions, particularly in the Northwest region? How do you think that these schools are prepared to receive the students?
Vanessa, when we talk about schools being prepared, there is no day that school has not been prepared to receive students. The schools have always been there to receive students, but the students most of the time are not there. Although some structures have been destroyed, but from my knowledge, most of the schools are still there, waiting for students to come. Then, in other words, when we talk about preparation or readiness, as far as school resumption is concerned, we are talking about the physical preparedness and the psychological preparedness. If you go to the Northwest and the Southwest today, you will discover that parents are fed up in keeping their children home, because there is no parent who will be so happy to see his or her child becoming an illiterate tomorrow, because illiteracy is a threat, a security threat to the society. I happen to have been in the Northwest. I've been in Bamenda for a month, and I saw the anxiousness and the anxiety on the children to go back to school. And during the holidays, I discovered that many of the schools in Bamenda town were operational, and the children were very, very excited. And during the GCE, when they started GCE, I happened to have been in Bamenda. There were more than 2,000 candidates in Progressive Comprehensive College, Bamenda, meaning that at any time, the children and the parents, they have always been ready to send, parents are always ready to send their children to school. What is disturbing now is the security threat. And I want to take this opportunity to plead on the separatist fighters that no matter what is happening, the most fundamental thing is that our children should be educated. Because even if an independent state comes tomorrow, we will still need people to work in the government. We will still need people to work in companies. And these people are not going to work in companies or in the government without education. So, what I can say is that as a parent, I think there is no parent in the Northwest or the Southwest that is so prepared to allow his or her child to remain in the house. Everybody is prepared. Just that, as I've earlier said, the security aspect of it what is disturbing now. I was so delighted the other day when I saw a communique purportedly to have come from the separatist fighters asking that schools should resume in the Northwest and the Southwest. I hailed them and I said that that is one of the positive decisions that they have taken. But later on, I discovered that other separatist groups came up to say that that communique was fake. Once more, I want to say that those who are in Europe championing this fight, their children are going to school in Europe. And to keep our own at home, for me personally, it's not a wise decision. Because when these children will remain illiterate, primitive, and those who come from Europe tomorrow, these illiterate children will still be a threat to them. We have an example of what is happening in South Africa. During the apartheid regime in South Africa, people did not go to school. But today, they are recruiting. There are jobs. And they can't do the jobs because they can't provide the necessary certificate or the necessary skills needed for the jobs. So when others have come now to do the job, it is as if the foreigners have taken over their rights. Which for me, I think we shouldn't repeat the same error that these people in South Africa, they did.
Okay. Education
is a fundamental right of every child. As a parent, the only thing that can make me to be proud of my child is the education. We are all sitting here because we went to school. If we didn't go to school, we would not be sitting here talking.
Probably.
So anybody who try to restrict the fundamental right of a child not to achieve education, I think that person should think twice. Because tomorrow, after the crisis, we will still need to sit at the table and discuss. Illiterates are not going to sit on that table. We will need people who are educated, who is going to argue the case of the Anglophone tomorrow if we don't have people who have gone to school. So that is the question that we should ask ourselves.
All right.
So I want to say that
parents are prepared.
Parents are prepared, and the schools are ready to welcome them.
But the environment is not favorable.
The environment is not favorable, yes.
Because they might be prepared, but the question is the environment favorable for these children?
The thing is that
to go to school?
The thing is that other communities should cooperate. Because when I talk about my area that I know better. If you go to Nkambe, Honorable Ngala Gerard will be launching the school year in Nkambe on the 2nd of October. You will discover that the parents have decided that their children will go to school. And it is happening. And the children are going. And when you go to Nkambe, you discover that most of the children in Nkambe, they come from neighboring villages like Banso, other areas that have been hardest hit by the crisis, and they're schooling in Nkambe. So I don't think that keeping children at home is going to give us, or going to give the Anglophones independence, because I've not seen a country that have kept their children at home and they have been given independence. So the most important thing is that let the community say, because these separatists, most of them are educated, they went to school. Let the community say please, while you are fighting, let our children go to school. We cannot continue to keep them at home.
Right.
If you discover that the crisis is deteriorating now, we have started hearing about atrocities, people beheading others, because they don't even know the conventions the international conventions that governs the war. You know that somebody who is not educated is not less than an animal. He takes instruction without reasoning the consequences of the instructions. So I want to plead that we should think twice. And I think that parents are very, very prepared to send their children to school.
Thank you very much, Kimbang Vitalis, for your viewpoint. Mangavena shoes away from the physical, psychological preparedness and financial preparedness and the anxiety for parents to see back their children go to school. You still think that the schools are not prepared to welcome these children?
Vanessa, it's not as if we are. It's not as if we are against the fact that children should go to school. It's not as if we underestimate the importance of education, the place of education in our society, the place of education for an individual. No, we all understand the importance, the importance of this aspect, education, that every child has to to be given the opportunity. But then we are trying to find out if schools are prepared. To say that schools are prepared is one thing, and to look at the situations or the conditions, the circumstances is another thing. Mr. Kimbang was talking about the issue of the physical and the psychological preparedness of going back to school. I think that, like he's saying, there's no parent in the northwest or southwest regions that would want the child to remain at home. But when you look at the surrounding circumstances, they do not permit such a wish. You know, an English adage says, if wishes were horses. Now they now have the wishes, but they cannot turn these wishes into horses for them to ride, because they would want their children to go to school, but it is not possible. We are talking about preparation going back to school in less than a week, because schools should resume from next week, October 5th. And when we listen to what is happening exactly, or call it just in the northwest region. When we're talking of the northwest region is far more than Bamenda. The northwest region is not Bamenda. In Bamenda, conditions, Bamenda City, the conditions are a bit favorable for students to go back to school. That's why he can talk of about 2,000 candidates who were sitting in for the GCE exams. He can talk of school students who were going in during holiday classes. Is possible. But take other areas, other peripheral divisions, it is practically not possible for students to go back to school. We are living at a period when roads have been closed. We are living at a period when parents are leaving the region with their children. We are living at a region when, this Operation Bermuda Clean. Remember, the governor of the Northwest region promised that the operation will be extended to other divisions of the region to make sure that they get into all the hideouts of these separatist fighters. And we know what the Bermuda City dwellers have been decrying for the past weeks with this operation. You know, when the military comes in, the military does not come into play. The military comes in for a purpose, for a project. Their target is fish out the separatists from every nook and from every room, from every corner. And with the way the military operates, that's why people were running away. That's why people are running away. Coupled with the idea of motorbikes, life in Bamenda has been so tied down. And when we talk of schools being prepared to receive children, it is far-fetched, because in as much as parents want to send their children to school, no parent will dare to send a child out with the crisis still going on. We know that when you listen to most of the casualties in Bamenda, in the northwest or southwest regions, most of them are those who suffer from stray bullets. No parent will venture to send a child, no matter how prepared the schools are. No matter how prepared the government may say that the schools are, no parent will venture to send a child out once there is still gun battle out in the field, because anything can happen. Children can go out and you're not even sure that they will come back home. They can go out and schools, are attacked. Some of the schools were vandalized. for the past 4 years that we have had this crisis, they have not been reconstructed. When schools are reopening, what happened to those particular schools? I'm thinking of schools in Batibo. I'm thinking of schools in Agem, Wum. I'm thinking of schools in Bui Division that were vandalized. What will happen to those schools? How prepared are they? Most of these schools are not even government owned institutions. They are lay, private, or confessional. They are no longer there. When you listen to some of them, most of these confessional schools, they are relocating from Bamenda. We don't want to believe. I now heard something about Our Lady of Lords College now operating in Limbe. That is a new innovation. Now you see that they are now trying to relocate because of and they are coming to where it is a bit secure, because parents are afraid. When you go to such schools, those who were in those schools were those who came from Bamenda, from Douala, Yaoundé, other big towns. Which parent will attempt to send a child now to Bamenda to go to a boarding school? If anything happens, where would that child go to? So I think that, in as much as we would want that that school should reopen, the situation in the ground does not, does not give a green light how prepared the school are. We go psychologically. Which child will sit in class and study when you hear of gunshots outside there? Which child will sit in class and study when that child thinks that I cannot go back home? Because you don't know the conditions, you may go back home. So psychologically speaking, they are not yet free. If we were living in a region where the concept of this ceasefire, ceasefire has become something that is difficult to practice in Cameroon. If this concept of ceasefire was a reality in this crisis, maybe we can say that the crisis is already taking a kind of a cold war. Children can go to school because there is no war again. There is no physical confrontation. But we still have issues where you get up in the morning, you cannot go out. You get up in the morning, they tell you that once they get the gunshots, they leave their homes for bushes. And then you tell that schools are ready. It's practically impossible for children to sit in class.
Let me come in. If you have to say that the war will totally come to an end before schools will go on in the northwest and the southwest, schools will never go. I've given you an example of Nkambe. Last year in Nkambe, schools were only in the Nkambe Central. But I want to tell you that in my village in Binshwa, people are so prepared. They have cleaned the schools and they even started holiday classes. So you will see that the situation is not more as bad as it was some 2 years back. Even in Bamenda, I was there. My in-laws children, they get up in the morning and they go to school, and when there is gunshot, they all run back to the house. You see the anxiety of a child to learn. If we just say, okay, there are gunshots, we will never resume. That will be like that for centuries. But let parents cooperate, and we start from somewhere. And you will know that if you see the number of candidates that went in for the GCE in the Northwest this year, you will discover that it has tripled. And next year, it is going to triple. And that is how we continue like that. And before you know it, all the schools will be operational. Talking about structures, yes, many of the structures were destroyed. But we know very well in the Northwest that even when we create schools like government schools, they always start from some certain structures before they grow up to giant structure. You know very well, your own alma mater, GSS Jakiri, started in a small building in the council hall. Yeah. Yes, in Jakiri town. But today it's a giant structure.
All right.
So school must start.
But Vanessa, I would rather think that it is this importance, this weight of schools should resume. The importance of schools should be what should push decision makers to think of solving this crisis, if we are to give this importance the place it deserves. Because if we keep trying to pretend that it is not there, the crisis may continue, but they should understand that these children, they need education. It is that need that should push them to solve the crisis.
Yes, Mange, let me add another thing.
I'll come in. You are going to discuss your points. We are talking about schools being prepared to receive the students back to school. You are talking of the structure. But none of you have mentioned the fact that we are talking within the context of the crisis and the coronavirus pandemic. So how would these schools who have been destroyed be able to cope with the barrier measures being put in place before school resumption?
Vanessa, the barrier measures, if you want to talk about that one, it become very complicated.
Because when we talk of schools being prepared, all this has to come in place. Even
when there was corona, there are people that are living in the bushes that they don't even have means to have water. How many of them have died of coronavirus? So at the end, you will discover that coronavirus is even a scam.
That's what they say?
Yeah, that's what they say.
Okay.
Because, for example, throughout this period of coronavirus, I've not seen anybody that has died of coronavirus. I've only heard of it. So coronavirus cannot be an impediment for school to resume in the northwest and southwest region.
It has to be, because they will have to respect the social distancing measures.
Vanessa,
if schools have to resume, then they have to work.
I work with schools. I've been working with schools for many years, and I still work with schools this year. And even last week, I was moving around schools. There is no school that has put those barrier measures that I've seen.
All right, you're informing us now.
Yes, I've moved. If many teachers, they know me. I think more than 3/4 of teachers in Douala, they know me. I've moved around many schools. There is no school that when you go there, it is just name. The pockets are standing there empty. Even I went to a hospital yesterday in Bonamosadi. I even passed and entered the hospital without even sanitizing my hands, without a face mask, and nobody asked me anything in the hospital. What more about schools? If hospital cannot respect those barriers, what do we expect from schools?
Actually, Mr. Ngambang, I was thinking that the issue of coronavirus, it is not only in the northwest or southwest regions. The government is giving the go-ahead. And when I was listening to the Minister of Secondary Education, she actually said they are ready to receive schools. So we think that those readiness will also be extended today. But when you look at the gravity of the crisis in the northwest and southwest region, it surpasses coronavirus. Coronavirus is nothing as compared to the crisis that is preventing them from going to school for close to 4 years now.
All right, Manga Venashus, I remain with you. If you think that school resumption, if schools are not prepared, so what can be done for an effective resumption day?
Vanessa, I will say it again and again, and like people have been, singing over and over. If schools are to resume, when we are talking about the psychological aspect of it, the physical aspect of it, if schools are to resume, we have to talk about ceasefire. Mr. Ngambang was saying that the children of his in-laws, they go to school, and once they get gunshots, they run back home. That's the case where their houses or their home is beside the school. Take, for example, a child who has to cover up how many a number of meters. How would that child run home? How you sure, if you are a parent and you are sitting at home, will you be comfortable that when you get the gunshots, that you are waiting for your child to rush from school and come back home? So in as much as we want to say that schools should resume, in as much as we are advocating that schools should resume with the importance that it carries, there is no way we can give that assurity to parents that rather than calling for a ceasefire and consequently solving the crisis. That is why when you look at it, ask the question, why are parents leaving the northwest and southwest regions? It is because they are not prepared to see their children, forgo another academic year. That is why they want to take refuge in this other regions, in this other part of the country, so that their children's education can continue. At least here it is safer than there. And for life to come back to a situation where they can go to school, we solve the crisis. We start by calling for a ceasefire. A ceasefire, when there is dispute between two people, if one partner does not accept, they say you must swallow in your pride. If one partner does not swallow the pride, there can never be peace. We are having two conflicting parties, and the two parties want to be, they want to prove tough. They want to, and that is why it is the population suffering. I think that if the government is really preaching about this back to school policy with the importance it's carry, let us also talk about the issue of ceasefire. If there is no fighting on the ground and the crisis continues diplomatically, whatever, why is it only schools being affected? Businesses should also close. They should also close. Commercial motorbikes, well, we were complaining that they suspended them. They should not even function, like schools were closed. Because, Nelson Mandela once said, if you want to touch,
everything should be shut down.
Everything should be shut down, not only schools.
Mr. Manga, we are speaking here in the context where the ceasefire has not been called.
That is where the situation is.
Yes. So now that the ceasefire has not been called, and if this war has to go on for 30 years, like what happened in South Sudan, are we going to have a generation of illiterate? Because we had a war of independence going on. There is war in Yemen. the war in Pakistan, the war in Afghanistan. You still see children, schools still operate. My worry is that, why is that we only target
education? That's
other things are going on. People go to the market. People say open their shops.
People go to churches.
Yes. It has become as if holding education. Yes, it's not education. It's not education. Because the only thing that can even give people freedom is education. Exactly. You are not education. You are not educated. You cannot have your freedom. But now, when you go and hold on to it, that it will not progress. How do you expect your own society to be tomorrow? This thing, as I've said, what can be done is that let the local people cooperate. Let them say that, no, we are ready to send our children to school. These separatist fighters, they are not people from space. They are people, they are villagers that the villagers know, the village people know them. Tell them that, look, while you people are fighting, please, we wish to send your junior brothers to school. I've even seen villages in the southwest where they have already launched their back to school. They are sharing bags to children. They are sharing books. Those are villages that are ready to come. Those are
sport activities.
Very good. Some real sport activities to bring the youth together. Now, look, education is the mother of growth as far as society is concerned. Once you are not educated, there's no way we can defend ourselves anywhere. So holding, I think, the government too, yes, should maybe try to talk with the forces of law and order so that the way they handle the local people, they should reduce their grip. Because I was reading something this morning, how soldiers have come to Lukumba and they have just bundled people in the truck and take them to the brigade. That one too bring fear into the people.
Of course.
So the government too, I plead with them that there are some villages that don't even have separatist fighters, but schools are not going there. So, but at times when the military storm the area,
fear comes in.
Fear comes into people,
and so they
all run into the bushes. So when we are talking, we should know that the two sides they carry the blame, because the villagers are afraid of the separatist fighters. They are also afraid of the military, and they are now in the middle, and our children are suffering. I own a bookshop. The other day, one child came to my bookshop of 14 years. That child has forgotten this common ABC that we say.
Oh, those are the consequences.
Those are the consequences.
Yes.
So people who have power in this country, let them do something.
All right. Thank you very much, Kimba Vitalis, for your contribution.
Thank you, Vanessa. I will plead with the parents of the Northwest and the Southwest that they should take courage. They should not be discouraged. They take courage and send their children to school. Comes October 5th. God will be with them. God will be with us.
Indeed, we pray that God will be with them. Manga Venashu, your closing remarks.
Simply, Vanessa, let us look at the way out of this crisis. Let us call for a ceasefire in this crisis so that we give way for our young citizens. Unless they keep deceiving us that the youths are the future of tomorrow, that they are the future leaders of tomorrow. If that is the truth, then we should give these future Cameroonians the possibility to train themselves, to form themselves, unless we want that Cameroon should stop after our generation so that the next generation should not exist. If we want that it should exist, let's give them the opportunity by thinking about what would become of them in future.
One more thing. I want to plead with those who are living out of the Northwest and Southwest, because these are the people who are giving the people in the Northwest and the Southwest every reason not to send their children to school, because they are already in safer zones and their children are going to school. And for me, I see it as signs of wickedness. Let them also encourage those who are in the Northwest and Southwest that education is good. Let their children go to school.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your contribution in the show tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of today's edition. Oily Limbito to encourage our parents back at home to be courageous in sending their children to school, or to take heart, while we hope or we wish that the crisis will come to an end soonest. See you tomorrow, God willing. Do stay tuned to DBS programs. Goodbye.